In this video, I will show you all 5 players that you need to succeed, plus bonus picks for tonight's single game slate on FanDuel in 5 minutes or less. My name's Quick Pick Nick, and having simulated dozens of thousands of lineup combinations, here are your relaxing lotteries for Sunday Night Football, November 29th, 2020. For a DraftKings version of this slate, check the link in the description to see yesterday's video. If you like this kind of fast-paced, calculated content, subscribe and stay tuned for more lineups throughout the season, including a DraftKings single game showdown mode lineup for Monday Night Football tomorrow morning. To start off this lineup with our pair of locks, my model recommends the same 2 locks with which I started that DraftKings lineup from yesterday. As even in FanDuel's half PPR format, these 2 players are far beyond the rest of the options with respect to their high ceilings and potential fantasy output, as they are Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. The rationale for both of these picks is similar to the reasons behind their selections in the DraftKings lineup, so if you want a more in-depth look at their outlooks, I'd recommend checking out that video. But to briefly recap, Rodgers and Adams are simply the only players capable of scoring more than 20 fantasy points on a consistent basis. With the exception of a couple bad marks on each player's record, both of these top-tier options rarely fall below 20, with these low points coming against other top-tier opponents. The Bears are clearly not one of those teams that will be able to slow this couple, as with the second least first downs per game in the NFL, Chicago's drives typically end with an early punt or turnover, providing Rodgers, Adams, and the Packers, the team with the most time of possession per game in the league, more than enough opportunity to build upon their already MVP caliber seasons. Which player should act as our MVP in this situation gets a bit more difficult, as without that price multiplier on FanDuel like there is on DraftKings, there really isn't a clear definitive option as to which player should get the 1.5 times points. We chose Rodgers on DraftKings mainly because he was significantly cheaper than Adams, but without a price penalty, as long as we're taking both players, it won't really matter with respect to the budget which one is the MVP. My projections don't help much here either, as the margin of error estimates these 2 to have almost identical performances in terms of fantasy output. So at this point, it's really just up to your own personal preference. I'll probably be entering 2 separate lineups, each containing the other as the MVP, but to keep this video moving, I'll just slot in Rodgers because he's more expensive and it looks better. For the remaining 3 players, there were a wide range of combinations my model found, so I wouldn't call any of these selections locks. One player who did appear more often than the rest though, who I would consider somewhat of a limbo between lock and lottery, is Lazard. Although Lazard had a rough game last week with only 2 catches on 4 targets, Matt LaFleur seemingly kept Lazard on a snap count, having just returned from an injury that kept him sidelined for almost 2 months. But at full health, we should be able to expect similar numbers from Lazard to that of his earlier performances in this season, like when he was on the field for 87% of Green Bay snaps over the first 3 weeks and managed 2 touchdowns during that span. For these last 2 players, there are 2 different combinations that I wanted to share because they were both quite intriguing to me as potential entrants. The first included David Montgomery, who is Chicago's workhorse and only reliable running back active on the depth chart. He hasn't managed to get much done on the ground, ranking quite low in rush yards per game considering his high volume, but that high volume is really all we need since the Bears will be dependent on Montgomery if they ever decide to run the ball, which will likely be a popular play call tonight considering Mitchell Trubisky's inevitable start. The last lottery of this first lineup is Robert Tunyan, who fell off a bit after Adams returned from injury, but has still managed to make his presence known on short route passes and quick gains, especially in the red zone, ranking 3rd among tight ends in total touchdowns this season. For that alternate lineup, if you're looking for a more Bears-heavy roster, which might not be such a bad idea considering these 2 teams have historically played each other in close games with this divisional rivalry, you could replace Montgomery and Tunyan with Allen Robinson, Chicago's top option who ranks 5th in targets per game among wide receivers, and Anthony Miller, a less prevalent option on the Bears who has quietly been gaining attention, recording nearly 9 targets per game over the past 3 weeks. Both of these alternate players get enough volume to potentially make something happen, so I'd be comfortable submitting either this lineup or the former. That's what my model was able to come up with for the Sunday Night Football single game slate on FanDuel tonight, November 29th, 2020. This has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.